Good evening and welcome to the May 4th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Supervisors. I ask everyone in attendance to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. So we'll do a quick roll call. Do we have Supervisor Weiss?
I'm here.
Supervisor Blundy?
Here.
Supervisor Lewis?
Here.
And Supervisor Grenier will not be joining tonight's meeting. Just a reminder, public comment on agenda items will be taken as each item is discussed. I will turn it over to our Township Manager for community announcements.
As a reminder, during this portion of the agenda, residents and youth organizations may call in to make a special announcement, or you can contact the township at admin@lnt.org to request a special announcement be added to a future agenda. Lower Makefield Township will be holding a Styrofoam and recycling event on Saturday, May 21st from 10 a.m. to noon outside the Township building. We're collecting clean white Styrofoam, natural and synthetic corks, clean pill bottles with tops and household batteries. The next yard waste drop-off day will be held Saturday, May 21st from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Lower Makefield Township, as a reminder, will be hosting a blood drive for the Red Cross on Thursday, May 26th from 1 to 6 p.m. In the main meeting room at the Township building. You can go onto our website and click the link to schedule an appointment. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Agenda item number 5, consider approval of minutes for April 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blundy, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 4-0. Number 6, engineers report. Mr. Andy, take it away.
Yes, hello, everyone. I have a presentation to give on the MS4. This is, I apologize, Liz Coletti, our resident MS4 expert, is driving back from South Dakota tonight. And so you will have to listen to me drone on and on about the stormwater. But this is an update on the Township Stormwater Management Program. It's an overview of the MS4 permit and the requirements that are made of the township from DEP for that permit. Next slide. As a reminder, the MS4 is a municipal separate storm sewer system. It is the collection system and conveyance system that collects the runoff from all township properties, including township roadways, parks, and the administration building in the parking lot. And it collects the runoff, conveys it to the stream, and discharges it onto the stream. Next slide. The DEP has issued a permit to a majority of municipalities in Pennsylvania that have an MS4 system. And with that permit comes several requirements. They are generally stated as MCMs, or minimum control measures: public education and outreach, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site runoff control, post-construction stormwater management, pollutant control, prevention, and good housekeeping. And then recently, the DEP has required a pollution reduction plan and also pollution control measures. Next slide. So what are we doing in 2022 to maintain the permit and make sure that we are in compliance? Well, for the minimum control measure number 1, the township continues to post stormwater related information on social media. You can see there on the right, there is a post on the Lower Makefield Township Facebook page that notifies residents of what they can do for them and their family to be prepared for flooding. This has now become the primary way the township has dispersed stormwater related information to its residents, both Facebook, Twitter. There's various social media posts that get routinely put out there. And so that brings us into compliance with the DEP requirements for minimum control measure number 1. MCM number 2, well, this presentation is what brings us into compliance. We are required to make one presentation a year to the public, and this is it. Minimum control measure number 3, there's a stormwater management ordinance that DEP put out a model ordinance in 2022, and the township is required to review that ordinance and make sure that the township's stormwater management ordinance is consistent with that. That has to be completed by September 30th. We're in the process of doing that. We've reviewed the model ordinance and we've completed a checklist that compares the 2 ordinances to each other. There are not a lot of major changes to the township's stormwater management ordinance that would be required. It is generally consistent with the DEP model ordinance. There may be a few tweaks to language in adding some words, adding some sentences in order to bring it up to be consistent with the model ordinance. So we'll be working with township staff and putting out the adjustments to the ordinance and having the Planning Commission review that in advance of making those changes before September 30th. And with minimum control measure number 6, there's an operation and maintenance plan that needs to be updated annually for all of the township-owned BMPs and the measures that township staff or public works staff take to prevent any kind of pollutants from getting into the streams from the activities that they do. So next slide. So the DEP MS4 permit, general permit expires in 2023 because the permit cycle was established in 2018. With Lower Makefield Township, the DEP was delayed in getting the approval of the township mapping of all of the storm sewer system, including the outfalls. Those are the discharge points basically from where the MS4 system discharges waters or discharges runoff onto the waters of the Commonwealth or the streams. And so because that that process had taken so long and we were just approved in February of this year, we believe that an extension to the permit is expected from DEP. Having said that, one of the requirements of DEP is that all of the outfalls or the discharge points are inspected prior to the end of the permit period. And right now we have about 100 outfalls that we have inspected. That's approximately 25% of the total outfalls within the township. So we intend to have an ongoing discussion with DEP to make sure that that extension is going to happen, and then to prevent a situation where we're suddenly not in compliance because we don't have all of the outfalls inspected. The purpose for inspecting those outfalls is to take a look at the discharge points, make sure that they are free and clear of debris, make sure that they are not discharging pollutants into the stream. There's no sheen on the water or that gets discharged, or bubbling that could be a potential indication of a pollutant being discharged to the stream. So that's the purpose for DEP requiring us to inspect all those outfalls, and we're in the process of doing that. Like I said, we've got about 25% of the township done. In addition to that, there are pollutant control measures. The DEP's, in 2017, they took samples of the streams and identified impairments within those streams. And then that was the basis for them requiring a pollution reduction plan from the municipalities, but it also identified other impairments within the streams. And so as a result of that, they are now requiring municipalities to identify potential sources of those pollutants or of those impairments. And so what we need to deliver to DEP is a map and a spreadsheet or an inventory, a list of properties that have potential pollutants to the streams. And this is generally it wouldn't be residential properties. It would be commercial properties, industrial properties, things like gas stations, dry cleaners, auto body repair shops, things like that. We would, at this point, all DEP is doing is asking us to identify those land uses. And so then if there is a potential pollutant that is observed on the waterways, then we could potentially track it back to the source. And so that's the purpose of that. So in addition to that, the DEP is requiring the township to have an animal waste protection ordinance. The township is already in compliance with that, as we have section 7910 and 7911 of our township ordinance handles those concerns. So next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we do have an approved pollution reduction plan. That reduction plan is required to be executed by 2027. DEP has indicated to us that because the general permit expires in 2023, there may be additional reductions necessary after they complete their monitoring and sampling of the streams after 2023. So they're saying this to all the municipalities to kind of incentivize them to get the pollution reduction plan best management practices implemented sooner rather than waiting till the last year. And so they're trying to incentivize municipalities to get it done sooner rather than later. The approved BMPs that are to be implemented as part of the pollution reduction plan, and BMP stands for best management practice. It's a stormwater best management practice that needs to be implemented. This would be a stream bank restoration project at Charles Bay Middle School, porous paving parking lot at 5 Mile Woods. And then there are 9 regional detention basins, stormwater management basins that would be retrofitted and adjusted so that they not become ponds, but they hold water and detain water on site for a longer period of time. They promote infiltration into the ground, as opposed to just having a low flow channel and after the storm event, water flows immediately out from there. So this would be more of these projects are designed to retain more water and promote infiltration at the site of those stormwater management detention facilities. Next slide. So this, you may remember seeing this before when I presented on the pollution reduction plan. This is the map and the individual best management practices, the location of those best management practices throughout the township. Next slide. This is just an overview of the DEP permit schedule and the requirements therein. Next slide. And so this is how the township is doing so far with meeting the requirements that DEP has issued. You can see that we've completed most of those items. We are in progress on the outfall inspections, as I've discussed, and we are in progress on updating the stormwater management ordinance to match the DEP 2022 model ordinance. The other item that we need to complete this year is to develop an employee training for the operation and maintenance plan for public works staff, and we're working with township staff to get that implemented for this year. Next slide. This is a list of grant opportunities that would be suitable for any of those potential BMPs in the pollution reduction plan. These are grant opportunities that are available out there to help with municipalities in funding those best management practices. There's the Growing Greener grant, which is a 15% match. It is due, that application would be due at the end of June. There is a watershed restoration grant available. There's a $300,000 maximum for that. 15% match, again, is required, and that application is due May 31st. Then there's a flood mitigation grant opportunity. That would be for stream bank restoration projects. One requirement is that they do require a hydraulic analysis on the stream, both prior to and after the construction of the project. And, again, that is due May 31st, that application. Then there are other various programs within the Penvest system where they offer low interest loans for getting the work completed. So these are a lot of these grants are ongoing yearly grants that get released or opened up for application period, generally around the springtime. And so I just wanted to let you know that there are additional programs out there to assist in funding for these best management practices that the township is going to need to complete by 2027. Next slide. And that's pretty much all I had. That's the update. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions from the board? Any audience questions, public comments? All right, we are going to move along. Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. And I have nothing further. I provided you with my engineer's report. I have no other agenda items but if there's any other general questions on my report, I'm happy to answer those.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Okay, so now we are at the project updates. So that would be you, Mr. Ferguson.
The only thing I have to report as an update is that we are coordinating a date for a pre-construction meeting with PennDOT regarding the multi-use trail. That's the trail that's going to be going around the ball fields and the crosswalk from roll-off I have to get the date, but it'll probably be occurring in the next 2 weeks. I'll make sure I give the board an update when we'll get a specific time frame on when they're targeting to get started. They'll obviously need to coordinate with Monica to try to have as least amount of impact regarding things that are going on at the field. But I'll have that update probably by the next meeting.
Thank you. And there's one on there, the Memorial Park project. I know that I'm sure the township is still receiving phone calls about pickleball. Andy, I believe it's 3 straight days of weather over 50 degrees with no rain. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And
Okay.
consistently above 50 degrees. It not 50 degrees during the day and then dipping down to in the 40s at night. So we're still kind of waiting for that to happen.
So all you pickleballers out there, hang tight with us until we can get that.
Yes, please.
Any other supervisor comments on project updates? Is there any public comment on project updates or anybody on the line? Hearing none, we're moving on to agenda item number 8, the Play for All discussion. If Ann Toole is with us, if you could bring her in. And Monica, hello, Monica.
Hey, everybody. Before Ann gets started, I just kind of want to get started on this project. I want to thank all of the people who invested so much time, but in particular you, the Board of Supervisors, the Park and Recreation Board, the volunteers who helped with the focus group, all the organizations involved, all the residents who participated. Dr. Smith from Pennsylvania School District was also involved. There were so many people who gave input in this project, and we really thank you. We still continue to get input, and very glad that everybody was so excited about it to participate in such a big way. So I'm going to let Ann go ahead and present this project. And oh, and I forgot the staff, of course, the staff was amazing during this whole process. Thank you, everybody. And Ann, if you could just take it away with your presentation, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Monica. And I would also like to thank the Board of Supervisors, the Park and Recreation Board, and the public. We're closing in up to close to 3,000 people that have been participants in this process to get where we are today with Play for All. So we'd like to go through the slides that we have to illustrate what this plan is all about. So if you could, next slide. That this plan is really important because Parks and Recreation is an essential public service. It's an investment, not a cost. The research shows that for every dollar that a municipality invests in parks and recreation trails and open space, another $1.42 gets spent in the economy. And we all know that your houses that are near the trails, near the parks are higher value than houses farther away. And we have some powerful statistics, including support from your chief, about how recreation deters crime and deters addiction. So it's what we're talking about tonight. You'll see some price tags that are up there, but if you think about it, it is an investment, not a cost. Next slide. This is a 10-year plan. You can't accomplish everything all at once, and every small success that you achieve will get you farther along. Some things are time sensitive and so they're urgent, but this township is very remarkable in all that they have accomplished since the early 90s in parks and recreation. So we're looking at 10 years and beyond with some low-hanging fruit here. Next. This process, it was almost a year-long process, and the foundation of it was community engagement. We were the facilitators and the interpreters of what we heard from our lower Makefield Township community. In the first part, we collected all the data and analysis, and we did the analysis of the current scenario in the community regarding parks, recreation, trails, bike trails, and open space. In the next phase, we brought forth our findings to do some critical thinking to develop a framework for moving ahead. In phase 3, we constructed an implementation plan, and with the recommendations of both boards of supervisors and the Park and Recreation Board, created an implementation plan to jumpstart the Play for All in the next year. Now here we are in phase 4, where we've drafted the plan. It's under review. It's online. We're hoping people read it and contribute their thoughts. And we're anticipating adoption on June the 1st. So tonight is a meeting of discussion. And on June the 1st, there would be more public discussion. And over the next month, we'll be taking input. Next, please. So in our foundation of community engagement, we did 6 different components. We had a public opinion survey pictured on the right, which we generated about 1,936 responses, which is really, really high. We did interviews with key stakeholders. We had focus groups with sports leagues, with seniors, with the school district, with all of our municipal offices. Questionnaires were answered by the senior citizens in the community center and the sports leagues. The Parks and Recreation Board held several meetings with us to discuss every step of the way along of this process. And the Board of Supervisors had several public meetings to present and discuss this. And I had interviews with all of the board members for their related boards, including Parks and Recreation, the Board of Supervisors, the Environmental Advisory Committee. So next, please. What it all boils down to is a chart from our findings of our public opinion survey. And this really underscores why we have to implement this plan, is that if you look at the red bar and the orange bar on the right, is that those are the respondents who view parks and recreation and trails to be very important or important to the quality of life in Lower Makefield Township. You can see on the green bar how few people, I think there were 1 or 2 that thought they were unimportant. So this really is, this is something to consider as you mull over this plan and the recommendations. Next, please. What we heard is that the community wants safe places to walk and bicycle, and of any improvement you make, that's the one that will get used the most. Open space preservation is high on everybody's list. The need for more athletic facilities is conspicuous. We're building on previous studies that showed this, including one done by the Bucks County Planning Commission, about 4 or 5 years ago. This isn't the first time you've heard this. Better restrooms. Restrooms were at the top of everybody's list for the pool and in the parks. Bigger community center for more programs. That community center was built as a senior center, but as you have seen in COVID over the last 2 years, our world has changed and people are very interested in programs for everyone year round, from young to the young at heart. And the community center is vital to that. People want sports and more. More is emphasized here because what we heard from the public is that more programs in the arts, music, nature, drama, fitness, the STEM programs, special events, they're all really, really important. And one startling thing that we found is, despite the fact that we have over 3,500 kids involved in youth sports, the school district told us that fewer than 30% of the students are involved in after-school programs. And the most needed ones are the programs beyond sports. And we do need to provide recreational sports, because when you get into high school in a large Pennsbury school district, it's really hard to make a team. So we're looking at sports and more for programming. Next, please. So what did this get us to? This is our little diagram here with Play for All in the center, because our Play for All theme incorporates the items that you just heard. The need for more athletic fields is compelling. The desire by this community to have more open space, to protect the open space that we have, and to create the parkland that we need is there. Now all of this is unified by the more diverse kinds of facilities, not just athletic facilities, but facilities that people can play at all ages, connect with nature, enjoy the arts, and programs that we just described for a broader range of community service. There's a tendency to think that parks and recreation is all about sports. Sports is an absolute vital component, but it's so much more. Next, please. So we adopted the theme of Play for All because we want our plan to serve people of all ages engaged in active, healthy living. As you all know from the experience that we had through COVID, that parks and recreation was our refuge. And we know in Lower Makefield Township that our parks are your main street. It's where neighbors meet neighbors. It's where new friendships are formed. It's where our community comes together. So our Play for All is for everyone from the young to lifelong interests in a broad range of activities that will put life in our years and years to our life. Next, please. So here's what we had to work with. We'll ultimately have about 35,000 people. Lower Makefield Township has done a wonderful job in open space conservation that has limited the tremendous growth that we've seen elsewhere in southeastern Pennsylvania. So we're looking at the trails. You were 40 years ahead of everybody else in the Delaware Valley in your planning and development of trails. We wanted to show the support here for parks and recreation, that this township spends about $65 per capita on parks and recreation. The statewide average is about 38, but the national average is 84. So you're generous in your support and allocating about 12% of the budget for parks and recreation. What's truly remarkable about all this is that in the last 4 years, since you professionalized your Parks and Recreation Department, you're capturing 75% of the Parks and Recreation budget from, and that includes maintenance, from non-tax sources. The national average is about 25%. So your township has been very innovative in finding financial ways to sustain public services in parks and recreation. The last section of bullets there shows how many people are involved. And what we do not have here is the count of how many people are just using the parks and the trails on their own. So we're serving a very significant population here. Next, please. So we're building on successful planning. That's one thing that this township, of many, that this township has been very successful on, is this history of planning going back to the 1990, when the first park recreation and open space plan was done, to the township, the recreation needs assessment in 2010, I believe, I believe that was, oh, excuse me, 2018, that was. And we used that heavily in our plan because that plan did look at one of our chief components, athletic facilities. Our plan used that as our basis, and we built on from that to look at other services that are very important. So that was a guidepost to us. Two things actually struck me about this successful history of planning is, wow, this township has done amazing things in this history of planning. You have Patterson Farm, you have the golf course, you have the pool at Lower Makefield. You have all the open spaces that you have preserved. You're putting in pickleball. The Garden of Reflection. I mean, it's one success after another, and a lot of bold and audacious decisions were made in response to what this community wanted. Now, the other point of this is with all that underway, you have to pick and choose what you're going to do. There are still some things about that we have not been able to accomplish. For example, almost 30 years ago, Makefield Park was identified as overused and with insufficient parking. So some things are kind of sitting out there that we did address in this plan. So next, please. So all in all, the strengths is that Parks and Recreation is a township priority. The community's involved. We have a mix of public and private support. And this community values a number of things. They value the rural agrarian character. That's really crucial. We have to keep that. They value the connections, being able to get on a bicycle and walk safely to different places. The beauty of this community is front and center, and the facilities that enable active recreation for especially in our athletics. We have athletics, we have state champions in soccer, state champions in ultimate frisbee, state champions in volleyball. So we do have remarkable participation in lots of different activities. We have an art center, excuse me, at Patterson Farm. We have the community center. We have the pool. We have a golf course, an award-winning golf course. Next, please. So we can't look at this without our challenges, and we do have our challenges. The biggest one is with the time urgency, is that we have about 1,100 acres of open space remaining, and there's little time left to preserve whatever you might want to preserve, that there's some urgency there. The tough nut is that land is expensive. We don't have enough facilities for sports. Our community center is undersized. Maintenance are big. That is the most expensive part of a park and rec system. That responsibility is increasing. That the Snipes property is a polarizing community issue with people who want to see it as an athletic complex and people who want to see it as merely an open space. Filling in the bike path, the gaps in the bike path, that's a really hard thing. You know that we have in the Philadelphia area an 800-mile circuit trail, and the hardest thing is filling in the gaps. Facility overuse and limited parking is a challenge everywhere, and the solutions that we have identified do require more land. Next one, please. So where our opportunities and directions lie is the first one is, bear with me on this as it's a little complex, is that there needs to be an integrated discussion about Snipes, Makefield, and open space. That the discussions on those three topics have overlap and need to be considered holistically. I can explain more about that. The plan recommendations help to meet the overall community interest in retaining the township's beauty and rural charm, while providing active recreation opportunities over the lifetime of your citizens. It's a plan not just for kids, it's a plan for families, for seniors, for active, healthy people, for people with special needs. It's the whole gamut. The biggest opportunity that we're seeing here is through our Monica and I had a work session with Dr. Smith, and there's an opportunity to collaborate with the school district and our neighboring municipalities to deliver a higher level of programming at less cost for a huge community benefit, but through collaboration, and there's grant funding available to help you pull this off. And that now we are at an historical level with federal funding and state funding for parks, recreation, trails, and that you have some funding that you can use to leverage this historical level of federal and state funding. And your township has an excellent track record of pursuing and securing grant money. Next one, please. So here's the recommendations, is that open space that we protect as much as possible and create a stewardship program for that. That means, how are we going to take care of 5 Mile Woods? And there's several other large, significant open spaces like that fall under that. And that we work towards securing 80 to 100 acres of land for a community park. That we carry out master plans for many of the parks, or updating the existing master plans and creating stewardship plans to take care of those. The township excels, and tomorrow we'll be doing a statewide workshop on the maintenance of athletic fields. Natural resource management is a whole separate area of expertise that's valuable to your community. Next one, please. So athletic facilities is that we need to provide additional capacity for athletic facilities. We need to update the Snipes master plan and develop it with a mix of active and passive facilities that focus that are organized around the natural features of the site. That would get at the Play for All theme for everything that we heard from this community, is that it can't just be an athletic facility. It can't just be open space. It needs to be designed as a true nature-based active recreation facility for the community. That we need to analyze and provide solutions to improve Makefield Park. We all know, it wasn't news to anyone that the park is overused and there's not enough parking, and that there are inherent unsafe conditions because of that. We need to look at that. We need to light the ball fields at Kiola. And one of the other suggestions was looking at other parks like Memorial Park to see, can we line practice areas? Now, some of the things that we know is we do not have the capacity to serve the existing sports. What we don't have are athletic facilities for ultimate frisbee, for volleyball. Your swimmers are your winter swim teams are swimming in New Jersey, and north of here, there's no facility that they can use for, and your swim teams are extremely competitive and successful. And there's an opportunity there, because about collaborating with the school district, because they have to invest in updating that pool within the next 3 years. So looking at how there could be some type of collaboration there. that leads to the whole topic of collaboration with the school district. We know that the school district lands are heavily used already. So there's limited choices of where we could go to add facilities for field hockey, for rugby, for the ultimate frisbee, for cricket. Cricket came out as a major need in the survey. We were actually blown away by the number of requests that we got for cricket. Cricket requires a lot of space too. So next one, please. So trails, this is the facility we know it is near and dear to everybody's heart. Oh, I see I have a repeat here, sorry. But the trails and facilities are, the trail system with sidewalks and the bike paths is really very critical. Because that is the facility that's used by most people at all ages. Okay, next one, please. Programming. So here's a very interesting one, is that when we were was a kind of an eye-opener when we found out how limited the number of kids participating in after-school programs are. Now, while we don't have the exact percentage for just Lower Makefield Township, our anecdotal interviews tend to agree with that if kids aren't playing sports after school, they're really not doing much, and there's a whole big demand of kids with other interests out there. We recently had a police chief comment saying, not every kid dribbles a ball, not every kid passes a ball. We need to find something for them all. And so what we would like to do is continue our partnership with all of our sports leagues, which provide a tremendously valuable service. This opportunity with Pennsbury School District, and we know from watching the school board meetings that this is a high priority, after school programs is a high priority for the school board. We have recommended the pursuit of a grant. It's just a $10,000 grant with a $1,000 match to be shared by all of the participants. Those participants can be Lower Makefield Township, the school district, and the neighboring municipalities. Monica has already reached out and found good interest in those. So your match would be $1,000 divided by 4 or 5 different participants, and you'd get a year to figure this out. How are you all going to offer programs together, and how that would work in the future? But when you're in it to win it on after school programming, you would be sharing costs and benefits to serve a really important group in our community, the teens and tweens. So that we're really advocating that you pursue this. Now, if at the end of the year you figure out, well, yeah, we do all want to work together and this is how it's going to work, there's another grant. And that program is offers a 4-year grant to fund the salary of the person who would manage these programs over 4 years. And the idea is that over 4 years, that person would be working to make those programs financially sustainable, which your department is already a model of in recovering 75% of the cost. This is almost like almost a guaranteed win for everybody in your community. Next slide, please. So moving forward into the year 1, we have 4 different components that we wanted to zero in on. Open space, athletic facilities, programming, and continuing the park improvements that you already have on the drawing board and you have allocated funding for. Now, the open space discussion, our recommendation is that you have a discussion. It's a big recommendation with a big price tag. There is grant money out there, but largely the emphasis would be on Lower Makefield Township support. We're advocating that you look for a potential partnership with someone in the community, some organization in the community with allied interests, the health and wellness and parks and recreation and open space, to see where you may be able to join forces. Now, why is this open space discussion important? It's important because Macclesfield, we all know, needs help. It's way overdeveloped. It's way overused. There's insufficient parking. We've calculated that you have about maybe 2.5 acres of parking. When with a park that size, you at least need 6 acres of parking, up to 16 acres of parking for safety and league turnover, things like that. And there are too many facilities in there. Even the addition of adding turf fields and more lights, is not going to solve the problem. If we look at Snipes, again, because of Snipes needing to be a combination of natural resource-based park supporting a mix of active and passive facilities with athletic fields, pavilions, play area, restrooms, pathways, landscaping, trees, shading. That 38 acres is a nice size, but still not enough to provide the kinds of facilities that we've identified as gaps. In order to solve the Macclesfield and the Snipes problems, we have to look at more land. There is no better opportunity to look than now. It's the forces of the universe have really come together in this plan to look at how could we get the kind of land that we need, address Macclesfield, address Snipes, connect our trails all at the same time. That actually leaves the door open too for the community center, designed as a senior center, when you know you need more space. So there's an opportunity maybe on that additional land to create an indoor facility that would serve your community over the next 100 years. And the other opportunity is working with the school district, especially on an indoor pool, whether it's updating the one they have or expanding it or looking at a new one. The program we have discussed with the grant recommendation, and there is a list in the township and in the plan of all the improvements that are listed, the Memorial Park expansion, the trail projects that are underway, lighting Kiola. So what we would also recommend in a unified, holistic approach is updating the Snipes master plan to meet the criteria of play for all with natural resources programming, athletic facilities, and service to the community at large. And then to look at the open space in Macclesfield, that really needs to be together, that whole discussion. So that's our year one. That's our year one recommendation. It's very strategic. We could have developed a laundry list of 1,000 different recommendations, from fixing up this restroom or this trail gap or adding 2 more pickleball courts or whatever. But we think that your township has an excellent track record of being strategic and addressing the major conceptual issues and seizing the opportunities that are that you have in place. And now's the time. Next one, please. So the plan has a lot more detail, but with respect to the public hearing and not overwhelming people with lots of little facts and figures, we really did want to focus on what did the public have to say, what we found, given the resources we have, and the opportunities that you can seize right now. So that is the big picture, and I'd really be interested in hearing your comments and questions, and the people from the community who may want to weigh in as well. So thank you for paying attention and listening to all this. It was a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Just
You're
waiting for that
welcome.
presentation to come down. There we go. All right, so I will at this point open it up to any board comments. Anybody have any comments on the board? Hearing none, I will open it to public comment. I will. We'll start with the individuals in the building right now. So if you want to just come up to the chair and give your name and address for the record, and any comment that you have.
Good evening. My name is Bill Gabota. I live at 1230 Ash Lane in the township. Let's see, I have read both the survey and the plan with interest. And while I'm sure that much work went into this planning process, the resulting plan shows some important flaws and contradictions. For example, on page 66 of the plan, goal 1 reads, protect green space. Yet on page 54, the plan recommends improvement of snipes with ball fields. Page 12 expands on this so-called improvement, listing the tracks as Snipes Athletic Fields with 4 fields, a pavilion, 160 parking spots, and on page 89, saying it's going to cost $4 to $5 million. After all this discussion of development of snipes, we find the statement on page 53, snipes alone is inadequate. If the proposed development goes forward, it would consume most of the snipe track and many trees, leaving precious little green space remaining. Remember, trees consume carbon dioxide, which is a major greenhouse gas. The roots of trees hold back stormwater, while turf grass does not. Trees support birds, insects, and animals, while turf grass does not. Trees require essentially no maintenance, while turf grass needs mowing, fertilizer, herbicides, and the like. As an example, the budget for Makefield and its maintenance for 2022 is in excess of $100,000, and that's on page 40 of the plan. Let us spend our funds wisely. Let us turn the Snipes tract into a Snipes preserve, protecting its green space for all to enjoy forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gabota. Just as a point of clarification, I don't know, Monica, if you want to chime in. I know that there was an issue with the original presentation that went out regarding snipes. I think that a plan from 5 years ago was still part of this plan, and that's not the actual proposed plan for snipes. Can you just clarify that? Or did
Yes,
either
we actually changed the chart. If you go to the website, we annotated the date that we changed it and updated it. The graphic that you're talking about on page 11 that allocates how many fields, how many pavilions, it does not allocate now. It just has the acreage and the paths, just the acreage in the new updated graphic. That was causing some confusion. We wanted to make the correction, and there's an explanation on the website about the change.
I'd like to hop in too here, is that when we have made our recommendation is to update the master plan, which means an update of a master plan means taking a new look at that site, looking at the natural resources, looking at community recreation needs, and developing a new draft, all based on public involvement.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience want to come up and make a comment?
Well, Lee Pedowitz, 247 Truman Way in Yardley. As most of the board knows, I'm an avid bicyclist, and I listened with interest that you want to have, I think it was 800 miles of continuous bike trails. Is that correct?
In the city, in southeastern Pennsylvania and South Jersey, there's a program called the Circuit. You could Google the Circuit and see that there is 800 miles of connected bike path, which includes pathways in Lower Makefield.
Okay, so, and you mentioned that you want to fill in the gaps. all these bike trails you're talking about, are they municipally owned? The reason I say that is because along Oxford Valley Road, there's a bike and walk path, but it's in front of 301 Oxford Valley Road and 310. It's in desperate need of repair, and I've brought this up many times, and I bike along there a lot, and I'll exaggerate a little, but I think I'm taking my life in my hands going over those trails. And when I brought it up, those trails are owned by the property owners. And I would think that if there's a trail or a walkway that's accessible to the public, it should be properly maintained. And in fact, if I didn't hear your presentation, I would have brought it up in a public comment later. And I just want to find out what the status of it is, because we're entering into the spring, or spring's going by fast, the summer season, when those trails will be used. It will be there'll be a lot of traffic on those trails. So I was just wondering what's happening with that.
You want?
Does anybody have any, Kurt, I think that at some point, we did do some repair along that stretch of Oxford Valley Road, is that correct?
I know Lee has talked about this a lot, and I've brought this up with him, that this is a little more complicated than just fixing the trail. It is a project that was built a number of years ago that was located in a PennDOT right-of-way. And as such, PennDOT does not accept maintenance responsibilities or a path in their right-of-way. So as such, this is sat sort of in a no man's land of who is responsible for it. We have had discussions with the property owner. So for example, this year when there was snow and that needed to be removed, they had agreed to do that. We had done the removal on either side of that span that fronts that private property. That will have to be a discussion that we have. Property owner essentially has a strong argument that it's not their responsibility. PennDOT says they don't accept ever responsibility for those things. So that will have to be a discussion with if and how the township takes over that, how that will be, who will pay for that to bring it up to better standard. And those are discussions that the solicitor's office and Barbara Kirk have had with that property owner and that attorney that we'll have to eventually bring to the board when we get to some resolution.
I dislike the use of the word eventually, because I've been living here over 5 years now, and there was some repair made to it a couple of years ago, and
Correct.
it was basically inadequate. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And you can walk it yourselves and you'll see it. So I would like to see, I don't know if this is on the front burner, the back burner, or whatever burner it's on. It should be addressed expeditiously so people can enjoy it. And
Right.
that's all I.
Thank you, Lee. And I appreciate, I don't want to speak for everyone else, you bringing this up almost weekly. But I think, as Kurt has said, right, it's just not easily solved, right? We're going to take over control of those roads. That's an obligation going forward, those bike paths. And we think that maybe it's not ours to take on. So before we do that, we're doing our due diligence. I would urge you, if it's so dangerous not to ride your bike there, to take an alternate route and stay safe. Because I've heard about your tuchus, and I want you to do well. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Supervisor. The only thing I'm going to say is the only alternate to that is to ride on the Oxford Valley Road. And
No, that's not the only alternative. You could walk your bike across the street and go down that way. But I hear you.
Okay.
I passed everywhere.
Thank you, Lee.
I
Thank
need it
you.
for my workout. I can't walk the bike. I have to ride it. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Yep, I appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the audience that has a public comment regarding this topic?
Good evening. My name is Maureen McGroarty. I live at 314 Yardley Langhorne Road in the township. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for the presentation. We certainly appreciate the attention that was given to youth sports in the plan, but the teacher in me is really impressed by how comprehensive the plan is, including so many after-school activities, including the options for open space, and then, of course, to address the issues at Makefield Park. My children both play soccer down at Makefield. I know that you've heard this. I can tell from the presentation that you've heard how tired the fields are, despite our best efforts. The traffic at Makefield has really become untenable. This plan is such a good balance between play space and nature preserve. I mean, you can just walk throughout Makefield. Just this weekend at my boys' games, we saw a host of bald eagles, hawks, fox, deer, and that's within a 1-hour soccer game. I look forward to seeing more of this plan. I look forward to working together and seeing how the township is going to invest in it and work towards this balance. I think that the partnership with the school district is a phenomenal idea. Of course, I am a teacher, so that would mean a lot to me, but I just wanted to say thank you. A lot of work went into this, and we really do appreciate being heard.
Thank you. Hey, Ann, I just had a quick question. Something she said just reminded me of something. Do you know how many acres the school district has?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't.
I'll look it up real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other public comment while she's looking that up?
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Luciano. I live at 1229 Ash Lane. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I've read the report in its entirety, and I appreciate the time and the energy that went into it. But I am concerned that this plan heavily relies on an invalid survey. This was an open access web survey, meaning it was available to anyone inside or outside the township. It seems it would have made more sense to mail a survey to each household in the township so that only residents could respond, and the board could have an accurate representation of what residents really want. I did raise this issue with the town during the survey period and was told that the town could not afford to do a mailed survey. Additionally, the plan repeatedly points to the development of the Snipes Tract as a high priority, and I understand that Ms. Toole has pointed out that the written plan that we have differs from what she sees moving forward. I was moving from the 95-page plan that I read. Speaking for myself, I support development of the Snipes Tract in a way that is neighborhood friendly and falls within the existing subdivision bylaws. I envision a nature preserve with walking trails, biking trails, picnic pavilions, educational elements, and limited permeable parking. This would be something that would benefit the entire community. I ask that the Snipes Tract be assessed by professionals who can properly evaluate what is there in terms of wildlife and wetlands, and speak to the impact of the parcel's potential development on wildlife, drainage, and traffic. I also ask that you have a study done that is scientifically and statistically rigorous so that you'll have trustworthy data as you move forward making decisions for the future of our town, and that you have information that genuinely reflects the desires of your constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Beth Cawley. I live on James Court in Yardley. My question is, since the report was comprehensive, and I agree with the last person who spoke, I never received the survey, and I've lived in the township most of my life, all my life really. I never received the survey at all. And I would have liked to have received the survey. Someone happened to send it to me and said, "Did you ever see this?" I said, "No, I did not." So I think to be fair to everyone, it should go to every single household. It's certainly a drop in the bucket money-wise compared to spending millions. I actually saw one person who said they were a proponent of the sports fields, but now have turned the other way and wanting to preserve land because they thought the sports fields could run anywhere from $6 to $8 million. That's an awful lot of money for the township to spend since they were in such incredible debt. Perhaps some of the money should be invested and saved for the future. Also, something of this nature, since Jan mentioned a few times in her presentation, is very polarizing in the community. Wouldn't it be wise to have a referendum in November stating how would you like your tax dollars spent? Do you want to spend purchasing open space that will be open space, or do you want it spent on developing athletic fields? That would be fair to everyone in the community, or those of us who go and vote. Or the best idea is to send every single household a survey so that you really get the accurate count on what people want, because this township happens to be top heavy in seniors. They don't have little kids playing sports. So to be fair to everyone, a referendum or a survey mailed to each and every household, which, as I said, is a drop in the bucket compared to the expenditure of $5 million on sports fields. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coley.
Hey everyone, how you doing? I'm George Schlieben, 1035 Harbor Drive in Yardley, Pennsylvania, of course. I am also the president of YMS, and I just wanted to thank Ann and Monica for the tremendous amount of time they put in. You know, I think there was a lot of due diligence done here with what is needed from all angles and all constituents involved. Certainly, coming from the perspective of the youth in this community, I disagree with the last person who commented. I think that we are in a place where I've seen soccer in this community continue to grow. In particular, our rec program went from 700 kids to 200 kids in less than 2 years. So, you know, while it may seem, maybe it is senior top heavy, I don't know that fact, but all I can tell you is the stats that we see is a rise in youth sports in this area. And I think it's important that we need to account for all the needs of this community and not just one end or the other. So thanks again for everything that's been done. And we look forward, YMS looks forward in any way we can help partner with the township on planning moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Any other public comment?
Hello, Robert Davison, 995 Plowshare Road in Yardley. I'm really just going to kind of support what some of the other folks said. First, I think it's a very comprehensive plan. I'm happy to see all the effort that you guys put into it. I think it's going to satisfy the needs of really everyone within the community. Obviously, I'm more stent towards the athletic fields, understanding how challenging Makefield been in the 14 years I've been part of a soccer program. That facility needs a lot of help. And not only does it need a lot of help, but it also needs a lot of relief. And relief meaning we need to find other avenues to spread sports out. Not only soccer, you have baseball, you have football, like the presentation showed, ultimate frisbee. I know that's big in my older son's age group. So being able to spread out sports in other facilities is going to be a huge plus for Makefield itself. So again, I just want to thank you for all the effort that you put into this. I look forward to seeing more of it, and really more importantly, the plan rolled out. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Matt Curtin, 88 North Main Street, and I am Vice Commissioner of Pennsbury Athletic Association. Again, I want to thank Ann and Monica for the work in the presentation. I did have two questions for Ann. The first was, in the budget and in the presentation, you talked about 12% of spending being allocated toward Parks and Rec, and I think you said that was on the higher end or a very healthy allocation relative to some other things. The township obviously has a golf course. If you were to normalize relative to some of the benchmarking by taking the golf course out of it, what do the numbers kind of suggest? I really don't have an agenda to ask that. I'm more just curious if that's slated or how you think about it.
Well, that's an excellent question, because the 12% does not include the golf course. In addition to what the township allocates, the township also has 5 or 6 enterprise funds, which are the golf course, the pool, the Garden of Reflection, and a few others. Those are set up as enterprise funds. Those are revenue generating accounts. That's not even counted in the 75% cost recovery, the 12% ratio of the township budget, or the $65 per capita investment. So when you consider the pool actually is profitable. In most places in Pennsylvania, pools are closing. So this township operates its enterprises prize funds extremely professionally as a business operation. So I'm really happy you asked that question. We get to brag a little bit more here.
Awesome. Thank you for the clarification. All right. Last question was just around, with the cost of land acquisition and land development, from your experience, are lights typically a cost-effective way to get more use out of the land you already have or the resources that already exist? And what's been your experience with them in other places?
Yes, you need what you need is the right basis to work from, and what we found is that you don't have enough land to do that. But once you do have enough land and you do use lights to expand the use, it does greatly expand the use. It also mandates more maintenance. So you have to plan for that as well. And in terms of that, you also have to plan for scheduling field use so that there's proper turnover with safety, so that traffic is safe and manageable for the participants in the park. So it gets to be a complex question, but in the simplest way is lights always help.
Great. Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, Matt. Any other public comment?
Lori is online.
Oh, we have one more out in the audience, looks like.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Pat Vassay, 926 Pickering Drive here in Yardley. Father of 3 kids, all of whom play soccer, but we're not from this area. We moved here about 6 years ago because we like the mix of what you get here in the township. I'm also one of the people that helps take care of Makefield for the club. And when you ride a mower around there, when you ride a tractor around there, when you walk those fields, you feel it in your legs, you feel it in your knees, and you see it. So I'm glad it's obvious that the work is needed. What I think is in front of us really is the problem where, if my memory serves me, about 24% of that 33,000 people in the township are under the age of 20. So if you take the bottom 2 brackets in the census and the top 2 brackets, which is 70 and over, which I think is 11 to 14%, you have almost twice the number of people currently affected by not having a field that they can go play on, where I can always find a place to go for a walk. Okay, I love the green space. I'm an advocate of green space, but I think right now we have a problem right in front of us, which is how do we get these kids on fields so that way in 5 years, they're not the problem in 5 years. So I like how the plan's been constructed. I think it's well thought out. I also think with 95 running right next to Snipes, I just don't know how quiet a preserve is going to be there. I think in the history, there was originally supposed to be a fire department on that property as well. So I think, from the intention of where it was to the problem in front of us, I think the plan really holds as a good solution. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Doesn't look like anybody else in the audience. I think somebody's on the phone.
Lori is now in the room.
Oh, thank you. Please state your name and address.
Hi. Sure. My name is Lori Graham at 895 Slate Hill Road. Echoing some of the previous comments that have been made, I appreciate all of the work that has gone into creating the Play for All plan. Since my property is adjacent to that very overused Makefield Park, I'm extremely interested in hearing what the future plans are for that and would like to be involved in that. And I have been in touch with Monica about that. Kind of taking it from a previous speaker that spoke, we need to ensure that it's neighborhood friendly. And as another gentleman said about the lights and the need for lights, we need to make sure that the lights are respectful of the properties that are adjacent to the parks and to the fields where they're beyond. So again, I appreciate what everyone is doing, and I will become very involved in this because it's very important to me just as a resident of Yardley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other callers on the line?
No further public comment online.
Hi, sorry.
We have somebody in the audience, yes.
Yeah, hi, Sue.
Hi, Cyril.
Say hi to Mike for me.
You missed
My
your
name-
chance, Cyril. Nope. Hook.
My name is Cyril Toohey, Tuohy. I live at 3 Tudor Lane. I'm not going to repeat what's been said, but I appreciate all the work you've done, and we are supporters of this Play for All concept, whether it's at one place or another place. And so thank you very much for all of that. The other thing that strikes me is there's love to see the community and the township maybe work more closely with Pennsbury, because it's my impression that there's quite a bit of fields either on the high school or in the middle school that can be used or maybe reconfigured maybe to be used a little bit more efficiently. So that's all I'm going to say for now, and thanks again for all your help and all the input between people calling and people showing up here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
James, as a follow-up, I did look up the acreage Pennsbury has within the low Makefield boundaries. That's 143 acres of property.
And does that change any of your analysis?
No, it does not. We actually included that, and that's why we're strongly recommending the partnership with Pennsbury, because they are going to be doing capital improvements, especially, as I mentioned, the pool, which we need indoor pool throughout the year. So we are recommending that partnership look at grounds as well. One of the things that's important to note is that when we look at level of service, we look at municipal owned property, because school district property changes in uses. It's not guaranteed that it's always available. The other aspect of school district facilities is that school districts, of course, have priority on the use of those facilities. And the next element of concern is maintenance, is that with tight budgets, the maintenance of athletic facilities is low on the totem pole, except for the primary facilities used for things like championship football games, championship soccer games, high school interscholastic sports. But the general athletic facilities that are on grounds such as elementary school grounds or middle school grounds are often not maintained. So at the level that you would want to have athletic fields maintained. So there's another area in partnerships that you could collaborate on to see what can you do together to optimize the use of school district grounds for public recreation.
And in talking to the district, did you do any analysis of their recovery costs? I know that you did for the township, as far as how much of that they recover through user fees. Did you do any analysis with the school district for that? You didn't? Okay. Because I'm wondering if maybe that's the reason why they're suffering from lack of maintenance, is because the user fees that the township is applying to the users, that's helping us recover for some of that maintenance that the districts are not, or the district isn't.
Well, that's a whole study unto itself. And I would not right now characterize as lack of maintenance, but we have our public input from leagues and users of those facilities have commented that they would like the maintenance to be better. I know from all of my work, this is a common issue statewide with school districts hampered by increasing costs and having to make tough decisions about what they're going to fund. Public recreation facility is not their mission.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess as a testament to what a great job Monica does, helping
Right.
us cover those costs.
That's
Maybe
huge.
as part of that partnership that we have with Pennsbury, she can share some best practices with Pennsbury on how to help recover some of those costs from the Pennsbury standpoint as well. It's just a thought. Is there any other feedback or any other questions from the audience?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Janet Bryant, and I live on 1753 Horseshoe Bend in Lower Makefield Township. And I also wanted to thank Ann and her colleagues for all the work that they put into this presentation. I did want to make a comment. I don't want to rehash everything, but I do agree with what Beth Cawley has stated. I live about approximately half a mile from Snipes Field, and myself and others in our area, neighbors that I know, did not receive the survey as well. So I think that this needs to be looked into further, because we are the ones that are going to be most impacted by the proposal of these fields if they were to go in. I feel that this area should be kept as a nature preserve. There's a wonderful ecosystem there. I would not like to see trees uprooted for the sake of ball fields, lights, a concession stand. I don't feel this is in keeping with that area. I think if we were to go with a nature preserve, that would benefit seniors as well as adults, as well as children. And that's how I feel about it. But again, I think the survey also needs to be looked at again, because there were a lot of people that were not involved with the survey. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Quickly follow up on that, James.
Sure.
With the development of Snipes that Ann has mentioned here today, it's going to be a complete public process. So I understand that you feel that maybe you didn't answer this survey, but there will be a complete public process with the development of Snipes moving forward. So complete community engagement, the way that we communicate with the community, that lives in the area, everybody will be, participating if you want to. And that will be very public. It'll be on our social media, that type of thing. So that is what Ann is recommending here. There's no Snipes plan with any specific amount of fields in this plan. It's just saying moving forward, what are we going to do?
And Monica, that might be a good time to remind people that at the bottom of our agenda and on our website, we have all the different ways that you can follow or get emails or be kept aware. I mean, that's probably the best way. I myself am not such a Twitter person, but you can sign up for emails or Facebook or Instagram.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other questions, comments from the audience? We have someone else coming up. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Richard May. I live at 1270 Creamery Road, which is directly across the street from Snipes. One of the things in the plan
On page 12, it says there about the 4 ball fields and 160 parking spaces. These plans are not in line with Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance, chapter 200. Lower Makefield Township Stormwater Management Ordinance, chapter 173, and section 178-20.g, saldo regulations. The first time that Ann spoke to us, she had indicated that the Snipes Field was not large enough for the ball fields that you're contemplating. And this was originally contemplated 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, there were 16 separate variations that the township was looking to just waive in the way of environmental issues, traffic issues, flood issues, you name it. It runs the gamut.
Just to make it clear, once again, there is no definitive plan at Snipes at this point. The plan that you were speaking of was an old plan, and I'm confident that that plan is no longer on the table.
I'm quoting something that was just recently produced.
But I believe that there was a revision to that. I believe that there was an original that was sent out as part, and somebody actually caught that those plans were still in there, and Monica sent out a revised report that did not include those plans. Is that correct, Monica?
Yes, it no longer says 4 fields, however many pavilions, that all that is removed from the graphic that you're talking about.
But you're still looking at putting a field in there.
We're looking at it as a holistic plan that the community will.
I don't know what holistic means in terms of, what are you going to do there?
Neither do I until we go through the community process.
Okay. Well, I expect to be, informed as this is going on, getting an opportunity to participate in surveys as was described, especially since it affects my property, my lifestyle, more so than probably anybody else in Lower Makefield Township.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hello, Jonathan Esfefa, 1543 Quarry Road. A little nervous, so hopefully I don't stutter or mess up.
Yeah, take your time.
But so I'm new. I just moved in a couple months ago. When I purchased the house, no clue whatsoever anything about this being brought up. Wasn't mentioned, wasn't told to me. No one ever said anything about it. Not to say it's your guys' fault, but I wasn't aware of this. So I got 5 kids. Your plan is to build this directly in front of my house, in front of my front door. So I feel like it's going to affect me 100%. I just had a little bit of concern of you guys plan on putting fields. You're saying you're going to have to discuss that, but you guys want to put in fields, correct?
I don't think that is the intent of this board. I think that the intent of the board is to look at the plan from a grand scale of parks and recreation throughout the entire township, and that's one component of it. So to say that there's definitely going to be athletic fields put there, I don't think that we're at that stage now.
So you guys aren't considering putting fields up?
I think we're considering everything.
So then yes.
There's no definitive answer to that. No, it has not been discussed. We have not gone through the process to discuss what the development on that site is going to be, if any.
Okay. I was just concerned if you guys do put up fields, that's going to attract a lot of attention to directly in front of our house. Also, I'm sure if you do put up fields, which I'm guessing you probably are, but you guys obviously didn't discuss that. You didn't make an answer for that yet. But if they do get fields, you're probably going to install lights, I'm assuming. Stadium lights are very, very bright. And I have a feeling they're going to affect us directly in front of my house, my neighbors to the left of me and to the right. I don't know. You mentioned earlier that the value of the homes would go up if something like that was installed there. Did I hear that correctly earlier?
Yes.
And that's from a survey, or is that?
There's research that shows that parks help to increase property values. There's a lot of research about it. I actually have a book coming out about it, produced by the Delaware Valley Planning Commission, that you could go on their website and see it.
Okay, because that was one thing I was worried about. That I just purchased this home, and if this is built there, it's going to decrease the value of my house, which I don't know, but that was one of my concerns about it. How many fields does Lower Makefield have that they use for sports or anything of that matter?
We have a graphic in the model that lays out all of the fields that we currently have. We have so many for different things. I mean, we have sand volleyball 7, basketball 4, softball 5, baseball 8, football 3, soccer 14, tennis 16.
Are any of these fields? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I thought
That's okay. I just wanted to answer your question.
Okay. Do any of these fields need upgrading or need maintenance on them? Like, are some not being used because of faulty equipment, or because, for instance, Quarry Hill across from our house has basketball courts without even a rim, a simple backboard. Like that to me is something very simple.
That's school district property, not township property.
So that doesn't involve.
So if, I don't know where you moved from, I moved here from New York 25 or more years ago, and that's still something that confuses me, but Quarry Hill is school district. That's a whole different political entity, and we agree with you. They don't keep up there.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with the township. Okay.
Although we are exploring, trying to see if there's things we can do with them to increase access, but essentially that's theirs.
Okay. And you said you have a Snipes master plan, but there's no drawings up yet. There's none of that's up there.
There's
the master plan.
There's old drawings on the website. If you go to the Lower Makefield Township Parks and Recreation page, there's all the Snipes historical documents. You can see everything that we've done in the past, how it evolved over time. It's been about 17 years of discussion. So you can kind of see it's all updated last couple of years. Any kind of environmental study or anything like that, it's all up there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
With all the traffic possibly gonna increase in front of our house, is there any talks of installing a traffic signal? Is that in the works, or is that something that can be considered in order to handle all this traffic that's going to be coming to the field with the additional parking, the games, fields? So my kids ride their bikes all the way around over there, and right now there's just a stop sign.
I would say, without definitively knowing what the development of that site is going to be, it's kind of premature to say how we're going to adequately, set up ingress and egress going out of it. But I think that, the plan of this board would be, if it were developed, to appropriately address that to make sure that it doesn't interfere with, current traffic patterns over there.
Okay.
Kurt, did you want to chime in?
No, I just would say just as well, that to pick up on your point, anything that's done in the township, whether it's a project that's developed by a private developer or the township, would actively involve the township traffic engineer, who would do traffic counts, who would look at speeds, who would look at safety, and any project that would increase traffic or change traffic or have safety issues would have to have as a component of it traffic calming measures, whether it's traffic lights, whether it's restricted turns. It's really getting ahead of where the township is at this point, but anything that would be considered, even if it was something that was passive use, the traffic engineer would be involved to just make sure if there needed to be any added safety measures that they'd be part of any final project. Township would be considered, even if it wasn't ball fields, even if it was passive use with trails and things of that sort, that would always be part of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm all for the field for the kids and having all that. That'd be great. My concern was just being directly in front of our house. I guess it's just mainly, I think it would probably upset our family to be able to move to the lower Makefield or to Yardley to kind of enjoy the wilderness. You know, I like seeing the deers behind our house. You know, my kids enjoy it, and I moved from an area where it was very close. Neighbors were like right next to each other, and now it seems like when we moved, all the woods in front of us are possibly going to get taken away, and I guess it just kind of sucks that we just moved here and this possibly could happen. So we're very concerned with it. I wouldn't say I'm against it by all means, but I definitely would like to keep track of everything. And this survey that was brought out, you said it's going to be possibly done again later on. Is that what you mentioned earlier?
There'll be a public process. So there'll be public meetings where maybe focus groups, that type of thing. You can be part of that. So like there was a survey before for the whole township, but people were concerned specifically with snipes. There'll be a whole public process where you can come out and be engaged. The community will be invited to come, and you can give your feedback about any kind of plans or any kind of construction or whatever is going on all throughout the process.
Okay. All right. Well, that was it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Any other public comment?
Can I ask a quick question? Before you, I remember.
Can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
F. Cawley, James Court, Yardley.
Yes.
Before, like before the COVID, they said when the township would do a project, they'd put a sign out. Like they would put, I forget what the engineer said at the time, or Jim Majewski. They would like put signage out saying that something was proposed for that area. Is that correct?
That would be something if there was a zoning hearing board application or someone who was requesting relief from the ordinance. There's a publication requirement that people proximate to the property are notified. At this point, you know, there's no project proposed, but I would imagine if the township was going to develop something on its own property, there would be some notification that we would follow similar to that if there would be a project that would be before the board.
Oh, I thought he said there's going to be, like, they're always going to post something that's like 5 feet by 3 feet. John, do you remember that from a long time ago? Probably like 4 or 5 years ago. They said that when they're going to do something, there would be some kind of sign put up.
Can I be recognized?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. At that time, you may remember that particular process. There was litigation at that time, and as a result of that, the township revised how it handles notice related to land use development. And we actually have probably the most rigorous now notification process as a result of that, in terms of notifying people in the general area prior to the beginning of the approval process for any land development. And so for folks, I think it's 1,500 feet from within that area would be there. There would be signage probably, as Township Manager Ferguson said, upon, you know, if there was consideration or if there was actually an open proposal before the board or zoning hearing board to review, or the planning commission to review or approve. But I would suggest that given what the report has said right now, that we're some distance from that time where there would be notice.
And like, is there any kind of time frame as to when? I know Monica said there'll be focus groups and things like that. How does one get in a focus group?
Well,
are you asking me? I'm not aware of how one would get into a focus group on that. I wasn't involved in the focus group discussion, and I really don't. My sense today is we're just receiving this report. I don't believe there's, and as far as I know, and I could be wrong, I have not been given any suggestions as to a start time for any particular land development process. So this is just, as my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, many of the supervisors may be more informed than I, this is a report of general strategy for Parks and Recreation, and it outlines some potential alternatives, but the board has not affirmatively decided to start implementing any of the recommendations of the board, of this report. So I would say that, the report hasn't been finalized, right? There's still discussion time, and this part of that is part of that discussion. So I'd welcome anyone in the community to have more input on the report. And thereafter, I would assume the supervisors would consider the recommendations as they do, for example, the recommendations from the Ad Hoc Property Committee report, which was about 6 weeks ago, was very well done as well. So similar kind of situation.
Thank you. Monica, how do you get on the focus group?
We'll have to come up with a strategy of how we're going to do that. I'm sure that we will put it out in all of our, social media and website. But with this particular project, since we know that there's a big neighborhood contingency that wants to be involved, we'll have to discuss how we're going to do that. Right now, as John said, this is an overall strategy. Moving forward with Snipes as a comprehensive joint use play for all plan is the recommendation. Going through the public process is a recommendation, and then we have to actually follow through now with that at some time after the plan is, finished.
Is it enough if I'm signed up on the Parks and Rec website? Will I get notification, or is that more for programming?
If you're signed up for our email, I feel like you said you were, yes, you'll get the email. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it's enough to be on the Parks and Rec email list.
Yes.
You don't have to be on anything else.
Well, you can follow all of the things. I mean, we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. Instagram.
But that's good enough though. If you're on that one list, you should get notification of different things.
At a very minimum, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Any other public comment?
We have Lisa online.
Sure. Lisa, are you there? Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
*6.
Yep, you're on. We can hear you. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
She just muted herself. Lisa,
No. *6 again.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank
Can you
you.
state name and address for the record, please?
Yes. Lisa Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle, Yardley, PA, Lower Makefield Township. I currently live near Charles Bames School, and they have a lot of field availability, especially, Pennsbury school districts on the weekends when school's not in session. So I didn't realize you were discussing the recreational and the Snipes field usage, but I do believe that the perhaps using Pennsbury School District, since our taxes also go to the school, could be a way to perhaps advantageously expand field and usage, because my concern is you have a aging population entering LMT, as seen by the recent developments, and you don't accommodate for them, but you do for under 10. Now, those people under 10 with kids, unfortunately, the demographics don't support soccer. You have less children and more older adults. So I think you have to really look at the Snipes Field track and make it available, especially to those over 50, and make it a place that we don't have, which is a nature preserve, like Churchville Nature Center, like Upper Makefield Bowman Center, okay? You don't have that here. We have fields, we have schools, which I hope to improve with our tax dollars, but we don't have that, and we certainly don't have bike paths that can connect from one neighborhood to another, right? We're making more bike paths, but we haven't fixed the ones we have, and we haven't connected them from my neighborhood, Yardley Crest, to North Esther Lane, Kings, Queens Lane, So thank you for addressing the recreational usage and making it a place for all community. But remember, in your LMT master plan, the demographics of the community are changing. And I don't know that that's represented in the current plan, although it's what I've heard is going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Just a reminder to you and all residents, we do have 5 Mile Woods located at the corner of, I believe it's Big Oak
So
Road.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
pretty
I
significant.
know that I live
Yeah.
close by it, and I have never been to it only because I can't walk my dog. It doesn't have a place where I would want to go to and sit. It's a nature preserve, but it's not the same as the Churchville.
Okay.
Point
taken.
I mean, it's
very
great,
much.
and I appreciate it, because
Okay.
any time you preserve land, that's a good thing for us now and going forward. Because remember, plants provide, they're a CO2 sink, and provide us a way to remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Thank you again. I appreciate it. Be well. Thank you. Any other public comment?
No further public comment online.
Excellent. Any other public comment regarding this topic in the audience? It doesn't look so. I appreciate everybody's input. I appreciate your work, Ann, as always. Monica, I appreciate your work. Thank you to everybody that participated in this, and stay tuned. This is a ongoing process, and we really appreciate your patience and input on all of it.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Ann. Ann and I have spent many evenings, weekends, holidays together
Yes.
working on this. So I forgot to thank you in the beginning, but I really mean it, Ann. Thank you for all of your time.
Thank you. We're a great team.
Thanks again, both of you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to agenda item number 9, the manager's report. Mr. Ferguson, floor is yours.
Thank you. Something that's not on the agenda that I just want to mention, that the board is aware of. We did get word today that our Public Works Director, Greg Huckelbridge, will be resigning. His last day of work will be June 17th. Greg has done a phenomenal job. It has been a pleasure to work with him. He'll be sorely missed. And I just wanted to make sure we got that out there of his time coming to an end. So you did get
one second, Kurt. I think John wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm sad to hear that Mr. Huckelbridge is going to be leaving us, but he did a tremendous job over the 5 years and 4 months he was here. He has been just a wonderful asset to the community. And my hope is he stays in the community. He lives here, and he's done a just tremendous job, and I will miss him, as I know many folks will. And I appreciate all the work that he has done for our community. And I thank him and his family for the service that they have provided.
Thanks, John.
James, if I could just quickly echo John's
Absolutely.
comments, right? Especially the benefit of having not just a dedicated public works person, but an engineer, someone who literally is working 24/7, whether or not he wants to, because as he drives around, he is taking care of and observing our community. And some of us remember before we were on the board, some of the other things that have happened with other public works, and Greg has done nothing but serve the township honorably and thoughtfully, and it's really a loss to all of us. So lucky to the township that's getting him, but sad for us.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Very nice.
Go ahead, Kurt, if you want to continue.
Thank you. So you do have a memo in here from Greg, and the first item for consideration, which is an annual acknowledgement that you all have, is to approve the 2022-2023 Bucks County Consortium bid for asphalt and stone materials as provided by Mr. Hucklebridge.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by
Second.
Supervisor Weiss, and it was seconded by Supervisor Blundy, because I saw Supervisor Weiss raising his hand, although I didn't hear him. Any discussion among the board members? Any public comment? Hearing none, I call to question. All those in favor, raise your, oh, it looks like Mr. Pedowitz is stepping up to the stand. I spoke too soon. You're on mute there, so somebody's got to unmute you there.
Dave, can you, there you go.
All right, thank you. Lee Pedowitz, 247 Truman Way, Yardley. I've had occasions to deal with Mr. Hucklebridge, and he's done a very fine job, but you knew I was going to ask this question. I mean, if it's going to take 6 or 7 months to find a replacement for Mr. Ferguson, how long is it going to take to replace Mr. Hucklebridge? And
I believe that, yeah, I spoke to Mr. Ferguson earlier today, and he's already on the case.
And Mr. Ferguson's replacement still is slated for 6 to 7 months from now, or from 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. That's what I was told. That's why you're keeping him on as a consultant.
Correctly.
And his replacement, the search is in progress, I assume.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I believe I called the question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 4-0.
Next item, the last meeting I brought up in passing the topic of delinquent sewage account collections. So I had provided for you, Mr. Hucklebridge and Greg primarily, I was more his assistant in this endeavor, had reached out to look at various alternatives for handling those delinquent accounts. And as I had said in my manager's report to all of you, or an email that went out as part of my manager's report, essentially this breaks down into 2 categories. One, you can hire just a straight collection agency where the charge that would be incurred would be directly to the township. So they take the 2 quotes we got, the lower one would be 20% off of any collection that would be netted out of the total. The other one that we had presented was a company called Portnoy Law Associates, that is a collections company, but they also are a law firm that handle all aspects of the collection. The collection, the accepting the payments, and even inevitably, if it got to that point, if there had to be liens put on the property, what have you, or other legal actions for collection. And the difference with them would be that we would actually have to pass an ordinance that would set the fees. And instead of those fees coming out of the pot that's collected, meaning the township ratepayers would be giving back some of that money, those charges would go directly to the delinquent account holder as part of that process to pay the fee and not have it netted out. So I've given you those various proposals, and I think it breaks down to really two things to start. Do you want just a strict collection agency, or would you rather have a company like Portnoy? And I think I had given as well the listing, and I know I did, as far as the clients they have. In Bucks County, 6, they collect in 10 or 11, or do this work in 10 or 11 different places. Bristol Borough and Township, Morrisville Borough and School District, Council Rock School District, New Hope Solberry, Sellersville Borough, Warminster, Warrington. So they and the list that I sent you is quite extensive as far as where their customers or where their clients are. But I think the question is going to be, would we rather just have a collection agency and still have stuff turned over where there'd have to be another step of the process for those not paying, and we'd have to pay for those charges? Or would we rather have sort of a one-stop shop that handles everything that's turned over to them, and they handle all aspects of that collection? We have searched, through talk to other towns. Portnoy is certainly at least the primary company that is doing this. We did reach out to 3 collection companies, one that we used to deal with that really would fall short of what we need, but then the other 2 that we had talked about. And it's just a matter, I'll direct back to the chair, as far as how you would like to proceed. We are getting into the timing where the last bill went out in March. We're in May, where we'd start to get to the point where we'll have a tighter handle on how many delinquent accounts we have. Some would be more recent, others could be, we have bigger delinquencies that would need to be addressed. But my goal is to get that discussion moving to allow the board to make a decision.
Did you get any feedback from any of the municipalities on the success rate of this firm?
Well, the places that I know that Mr. Hucklebridge reached out to were satisfied with them, because in the end, let's just remember, it's going to be one of 2 things. Someone is going to start to pay, and absent paying that bill or collecting, you'd have to take an action to lien on that. I can, and listen, if the board wants to have a discussion with them where they could present, I couldn't sit and tell you their collection rate is this percent and they collect this much in a year or 2. I would leave that to them if you wanted to have that discussion with them. But with the number of clients that they have, which I think is at like 180, most of the feedback we got was that they were very happy with their service.
Dave, did you want to chime in?
No, in Morrisville School District, the work they do there, they've been there for 5 or 6 years. They've been very happy with their work.
Okay. Supervisor Lewis, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so this would be for all uncollected debts prior to the sale of the sewer system or ongoing?
So the last bill went out March 1st.
Right.
So everything after that would be in Aqua's hands. So this would have been anything from Lower Makefield from that last March bill prior.
So Barbara Kirk had done some work, this might be 3 years ago, to do some significant collections work, and she got us a large portion of money. Do we know, is it under a couple 100,000 or more?
More. I'm going to say it's probably around, I don't have a final number, but my guess is it'll be somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 accounts.
That's 10%.
Yes.
Okay. And we still retain the rights to lien properties and perform execution sales, correct? To recover the funds.
So one of the things you talked about with Barbara that in the last couple of years we started doing was liening properties on unpaid balances. So we have done that. I don't think we've ever taken any action beyond liening a property over an unpaid bill.
Yeah, they normally pay at a certain point, whether they refinance or they have a mortgage or they just decide to pay. Right.
Or at the time of property sales, we would be listed as a lien holder.
Correct. We have a priority over
that would be
most other.
Other municipalities actually do execution sales where they will secure assets from the property owners to offset the cost of what's owed. If we think it's 1,100,
that's a lot lower than it used to be.
Yeah, and Barbara did some nice work on that. I'm wondering, is there the fees that we're paying out to the provider, can we charge those forward to those who are delinquent so that the cost to us is net zero?
So Portnoy, and I'll just use them as an example because I've had one, Greg and I had a conference call with him. There would be something, and you can't hold me to this specifically, something like a $2,000 or $2,500 setup charge that's unavoidable. But then all fees after that, the lien charges, even the collection fees, and would all be placed. And there's an ordinance we would have to pass that we would have, and they've sent us sort of a copy of a draft ordinance that, with the passage of that ordinance, would do just what you've suggested there, John. It would push all those fees onto the property owner, and then you all would be part of helping set what those fees would be. Some of those would be the law firm themselves having it set that recaptures their costs, but that would all be part of that ordinance, and that would all be on the individual property owner and not on the township, having that netted out as a cost to collect that.
Okay. Would the company have the right to perform execution sales or just liens?
I can't answer.
If they had to, they would go ahead and execute, I believe, ultimately. Go ahead, Kurt.
I don't think we didn't cover that in our conversation. However, I'd suggest if it's something you're interested in and you wanted to bring them before the board for a discussion, the guy really knows his stuff. So you could, and I'm sure, I think the answer is what Dave said. That would be up to what the will of the board is.
Okay.
How far you'd want to go with that.
Kurt, was it Kevin Burax who you spoke with?
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin's he's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I asked the question, I'm generally, given where things are, those all seem like really reasonable suggestions. My thought, aside from sending Barbara Kirk after them again, which she's rather tenacious, but a few execution sales might give people pause as it relates to unpaid debts to the township. So that's why my sort of perspective on this, that a little bit of initial aggressiveness might help us collect the rest of the money quickly.
And to Supervisor Lewis, to your point, Barbara has done a terrific job. The one thing, though, that Portnoy does beyond that is they're a collection agency, right? So they could work with someone to pay off their bill over time and collect that money. The stick part of it would only come for people who are not compliant. So that is the one thing they offer that's sort of unique, is they could work payment arrangements and be the point of contact. And I think, quite honestly, according to Steve, lots of delinquent accounts in most places they are, once they get word that, like, we're now a collection agency and this is what you owe, the collection on that tends to be fairly healthy at that point when people realize that that's happening.
Yeah, back many years ago, I worked for another municipality when I was in graduate school, and we had over 100% collection rate in this area. So that's why I'm particularly passionate making sure we get the money. So I'm certainly open to considering that further. I don't know where my other board members are, but.
Supervisor Weiss, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who has extensive use of collection agencies, attorneys' offices for collections over the last 40 years, I have to agree that hiring a law firm collection agency, having the fees borne by the delinquent account instead of the township is, in my way, the only way to go. Just collection agencies, they take a percentage one way or another. The township ends up paying for it. And having an attorney and collection agency combined, it's basically one-stop shopping. We don't have to worry about paying any fees other than the setup, and we get our money. So, I mean, this law firm sounds fine to me. I have no problem if you want to vet them at a meeting, but I think from what I hear and the little research I've done, probably one of the largest in the county. And I have no problem engaging them today if the board so considers. In fact, I'll make that motion to engage the Portnoy law firm to handle these delinquent accounts.
Supervisor Weiss, unfortunately, I didn't receive the actual proposal. I got another one from another provider in the list of emails. I got one from an AMS. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I think when we put the packets out, that was the only one that was sent. There was a different proposal that I had emailed directly to you, the same things, but maybe 4 days in advance or so, John, that included AMS and included all the other things that were outlined in my proposal, National Recovery Agency, Penn Credit Services, and Portnoy. And, you know, I'll say this again, and I'll direct this to the chair. James, if you'd be inclined and you want them to come and give an overview, a 10-minute overview to their services or something, and you wanted to entertain that, frankly, you know, in the end, we're still in the process where we're paring down this final list of accounts. We still have a few payments that are trickling in, right, of people resolving, and that's up to you. If you
Yeah, no, I think that probably makes sense. It gives us a little bit more time to digest of what they do and you know, maybe answer some specific questions like that Supervisor Lewis had regarding what action they would be able to take, whether it would be you know, limited action or a full full action.
And I'll withdraw my motion because
okay, thank you.
We really don't, because of the Sunshine Act. It did say consider, it was just an overview, so it's improper. So we'll wait.
So to all the supervisors, I'll resend out all the Portnoy stuff directly to you in the morning. They have like their materials and what they do and their list of clients and stuff that I'll make sure I resend that all out to you tomorrow.
I actually just found it. It is, for those wondering, it was April 26th, 11:43 a.m. So thank you. I remember it. I just didn't, I was going back.
It's all right.
Excellent.
So James, would you like me to make an invite to them for the next meeting?
Yeah, if you would. I think that the board's moving in the direction of the Portnoy way. I think there's a couple of little details that we need to work out as far as, again, how they're going to handle certain action, how we, you know, wipe out any additional fees that we may incur with them. So I think that's the best.
So, but can I answer one question right off the bat? Because it's the first question that I always get with this, right? So you get this law firm involved, and I asked Kevin this question. For someone that, let's just say they missed their last quarterly bill or even their last two, suddenly they get this letter, are they going to be socked with some big charge right off the bat because it's turned over? The answer to that is no. They might be given like a $20 or $25 charge to just deal with the processing and the notification. But if someone missed their last quarterly bill and they got this letter, it's not like their bill would double or triple or anything like that. And just a reminder for the board as well. If you'll recall that when COVID started, we did take a provision that was reported to the board that late fees and charges and interest charges would be waived. So there was a period of time if people were having trouble making their payments, that those would not have accumulated fees over the last year or so. So I think it softens it a lot for people who might be on hard times. Kevin himself has suggested that, you know, their goal is to get payment, to work out a reasonable payment plan. And even with charges and fees, if someone starts on that payment plan, it locks whatever that charge is. It's not like it would compound like some loan shark where, you know, it's going to take you 5 years to pay off something instead of 6 months. So they can present all of this to you. But, you know, our goal in the end is to not be outrageous with people, especially well-intentioned people who want to pay their bill off. So, but you can ask him all those questions when he comes in.
Fair enough. So moving on to agenda item number 10, solicitor's report. Dave, you want to talk about the consideration to participate?
Sure, yeah. Before I do that, let me just report on the executive session. The executive session started tonight at 6:30. All board members who are present tonight at this meeting were present at the executive session along with Mr. Ferguson, Chief Caluzzi, and myself. Litigation items, personnel items, and informational items were discussed at the executive session, which concluded just before this meeting started. With respect to the one agenda item, just a little bit of background. I'm sure most people in the township, certainly who watch township meetings or attend township meetings, know that for years there's been an ongoing concern about expansion at the Trenton Mercer Airport. More recently, there's been another expansion proposed, and there's been a lot of public comment and participation. Recently, the FAA issued what's called a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, as you can understand. Government entities are fond of acronyms. And as a result, there's a concern because a lot of folks, individuals and others, including many people in Lower Makefield and elsewhere in the area, are concerned that the FAA did not do a really good due diligence job of investigating a lot of the impacts that this expansion may have, primarily with air, noise, and PFAS, the potential for some pollution in the watershed and the environment adjacent and near the river and areas in that they're certainly in our area. So there's a group called Trenton Skies, I believe, is the grassroots group that has gotten together with several members from Lower Makefield who have retained an attorney, a fellow named Steve Tabor from, I forget the name of the firm. It's Leach Tishman, I believe is the name of the firm. He's a very seasoned attorney in this particular area. He actually worked for the FAA years ago. And the decision that was made by the FAA was on March 19th. There are 60 days to file what's called a petition for review. It's essentially an appeal from the FAA decision, and that due date is May 20th. What's been requested by the township, or to the township, excuse me, by Trenton Skies and some others who are interested in the litigation, is to request the township, at no cost to the township in terms of fees, agree to allow its name to be included as a co-petitioner. The thought being, and I'm sure there's a lot of data to support this, that having a public entity, especially entities such as large as Lower Makefield, listed on the petition as a party, it lends what Mr. Tabor himself said, heft to the petition and for the process going forward, which would involve potentially mediation, but certainly briefing and an argument. And one of the, of course, the major concerns is to make sure that the Third Circuit, which would be the court that would probably be receiving the petition for review, would send the matter back to the FAA for a more thorough environmental review of those three items that I talked about, perhaps anything else that may be important. So that's a rather long-winded way of saying the request is to consider participating in the as a co-petitioner, the petition for review to be filed on or before May 20th at no cost to the township with respect to legal fees incurred.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved that the township participate.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion? Any public comment?
We have one public comment online.
Sure.
We are bringing in Richard right now.
Hello, this is Richard Preston.
Yes,
Can
we
I go
can hear
ahead?
you. Name and address,
Okay.
please.
Richard Preston, 1522 Stapler Drive, Yardley. And I'm the co-chair of the airport review panel. And on behalf of the panel and all the citizens in the area concerned with the airport growth, I thank you all for giving very good consideration to this topic and having discussions about it for weeks now. And especially for the decision to support the appeal as a co-petitioner. You're taking a stand to confront the FAA's finding of no significant impact for this massive airport expansion. And that's an important leadership position, which benefits our township citizens who, if the airport expansion goes as they're planning, will experience a significant degradation in the quality of life. As we have heard from all the play for all discussion, people come here because of the beauty, the quiet, the whole ambiance. That's going to be really affected if the airport expands the way they plan to. So the point of the appeal is to force the airport and the FAA to do an honest analysis of the airport expansion effects. So to Supervisor McCartney, John Lewis, our liaison, and all the supervisors, as well as Mr. Trulove, who's been participating in discussions on this. We thank you for taking this position to protect all the LMT residents.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Any other public comment?
No further public comment.
Hearing none, call to question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, next, rather less, I guess, exciting part of my job, but we have zoning hearing board appeals again for this board's consideration. There are 3 of them before the board tonight. The first is 22-1961. Christopher Levens is appealing for the property located at 867 Dukes Drive, tax parcel 20-037-206. He's requesting a variance from the Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23 B in order to construct a swimming pool, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 22.7% to 25%, where 18% is the allowable amount. As this board is certainly well aware, the Zoning Hearing Board all the time when they see these applications makes a condition of any approval a stormwater management mitigation. So given that anticipation, we recommend deferral unless there's another opinion. Hearing none. The second appeal, number 22-1962, Daniel Magno and Daniel Carlberg for their property located at 215 Morris Lane with the mailing address of Washington Crossing, PA, although it is in Lower Makefield Township. Tax parcel 20-011-013. They request a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-14 to construct a 505 square foot addition with a vegetative green roof, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 9.0% to 14.2%, where 13% is the allowable amount. This property is not in the flood zone. And again, any stormwater mitigation issues, we believe the Zoning Hearing Board would take into account and make a condition of approval if they would be so inclined. So we recommend deferral again. Hearing nothing contrary, the final application for this board agenda is Appeal 22-1963, Chitan and Anjali Softcore for the property located at 708 Winwood Drive, tax parcel 20-042-342. They request variances from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23 B, in order to construct an in-law addition, driveway extension, and paver patio, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 14.8% to 19.2%, where 18% is the allowable amount, and Township Zoning Ordinance 200-68 A9 to permit the installation of cooking facilities in the in-law suite, where a dwelling unit for a family as defined in Section 200-7 only allows a common household with a single cooking facility. And again, given the experience of the Zoning Hearing Board and the circumstances in the application, we would request deferral unless there's some other sentiment. Hearing none, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Truelove. Moving on to agenda item number 12, zoning inspections and planning. Nothing. Number 13, general public comment. Anyone? Anyone in the audience? Anyone online? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 14, discussion items. So I want to talk to the board about doing a couple of special meetings in May regarding the sewer sale proceeds. First one is on May 31st and the second is on June 9th, both at 7 p.m. We would do them via Zoom. So if you're not available to be at the township, you could call in from anywhere. And we're basically going to just start the process of what we're going to do with these sewer funds. Is there any questions or feedback? Hearing none. I'll entertain.
James, I'm sorry. Can I just say something? When you had asked me about dates, right?
Yep.
One of the things that we had to look at was we have a robust meeting schedule with other committees, with other groups that meet, and some of which are doing them entirely remote. They're not doing them right. Not everybody has the hybrid alternative. So this was looking through that schedule essentially and coming up with literally the 2 available dates that we had. So that was where the dates came from.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? I will entertain a motion then for the consideration of the 2 special meetings on May 31st, 2022 in June.
I'll second.
Before you vote, have you broached this with Supervisor Grenier? Is his calendar, did you check with his calendar on this?
I have not. So the reason that these two dates came up, the person that I talked to was at Kurt and Katie, because essentially the calendar is filled with some other committee meetings.
So this is the first time I heard of those dates, and fortunately, I'm available for both dates. But I was thinking of Supervisor Grenier, who does travel as well, and it would be nice if he were given the opportunity to participate, or at least know that this was coming. So I know he gave you a heads up in advance, and he has been dealing with some stuff, but you know. So I'm wondering if we could tentatively say that and confirm it. When do you have to have the advertisement in?
Has it been on the agenda, right? Since the draft agenda?
The dates on the draft agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, these dates were sent out with the draft agenda. So.
All right. I just, maybe I didn't notice that as part of the draft agenda, so I apologize. But yeah, I just want to make sure that all supervisors are available.
Well, I mean, at this point, if you're available and Fred's available and Suzanne's available and I'm available, if Dan's not available, I understand, but unfortunately we have to start taking these meetings and start putting them together. And even looking at the calendar as we go into the summer, I'm afraid that then we're going to start losing even more available dates. So I don't want to postpone this into, fall. And that's why there's two meetings. Hopefully within both meetings, we'll be able to at least have them for one. But I do understand the time, but again, it's more of, it's better sooner than later. I hate to keep delaying this, right? I think it's important that we start really putting the effort together to do what we need to do with these funds, however we're going to allocate them.
My hope as it relates to the policy on this is that obviously that we've explored a fund proposal that would, allow the township to make sure that they're not immediately spent and invested in what we're allowed to keep them in, similar to what Middletown has done. Is that your intent, or is that changed in a way?
No, I think that's the consensus of the board. I feel it's the direction we're moving in. It's just, again, working out the details of how we do that and what vehicle we use and how it is that we piece that together.
Okay. Yeah.
And just to be clear, I'm not sure what you asked, John, but if you're asking me what I would do with the funds, I would want a portion of them to be used on a project like Patterson Farm. So if what you just asked was, is the board committed to only one path of action? I just want to say that I am not. Doesn't mean I control, but I don't want anyone thinking that I'm not committed to working on Patterson Farm and other issues.
Yeah, I think the approach is kind of a robust approach of both, some type of trust in addition to, money set aside for infrastructure stuff. I think that's what we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, I mean, although technically we are in the discussion part of the process, funds are fungible. So that if you create a fund, you can borrow against the fund if that's an option, or you still have general borrowing as well. We still could borrow if we wanted to. Yeah, I'm just concerned that, that a significant portion is used because this is a one-time cash receipt. And once the money's gone, it's gone. And, I lean toward more of protecting all the remaining funds. And then when projects are available, if we could create something that would borrow against it and pay interest, that's certainly something I would consider, as part of that. But my general approach is to make sure we protect as much of it as possible, and that new requests for spending are not taken immediately out of that fund.
Okay. Fair point. Fred, did you want to add something?
Well, I did want to get into details of how we're going to spend the money. I think that having two special meetings is great. Hopefully all the supervisors can attend both meetings. But we can also use discussion time during the stated meetings for this topic as well. I hope to have a healthy debate with the public on how to allocate this money. It's not inconsequential, and whatever we decide will be after a good, healthy debate.
So, and I hesitate to ask, but the board was comfortable with the Hill-Wallach memo in terms of options for trust funds structure. So it's just a question of, is there a question of structure, question of amounts? Are those the items where you believe more discussion is warranted?
Well, Dave gave us the options. We have to pick an option. Then we have to pick how we're going to handle that option. It's not as simple as one might. We need some discussion on that. And then, of course, with public help, we will decide on how much money will be protected and what projects we will, if we're going to spend money on projects, which projects we're going to allocate some funds to, whether we're going to deal with matching grants or whatever. I mean, these are all things that we can discuss in the next few meetings. But in my opinion, protecting a significant portion of the money, if not all of it, is very important. And but we also have some other very important projects that have been stagnating for decades and need to be addressed. Things like properties at Patterson Farm, what to do with the Slack House, what to do with our athletic program and open space. These are all topics that I think deserve discussion, and hopefully we will come to some resolution in the near future after this discussion and debate.
So I share with you a desire to protect as much of the money as possible, and I'm hopeful we could do that. And as it relates to, future spending, we will be getting some interest from this money that could be dedicated to either general fund or projects as it accrues interest over time. So,
excellent. Any other comments from supervisors?
My only concern just is, I'd hesitate to ask everybody to think, okay, it's Christmas time. Let's see how much we can take from now forward from the future. And so I'd urge my fellow supervisors to think very long-term about this amount of money.
Agreed.
Any other comments, supervisors? Nothing? Any public comment? Anybody on the phone? Doesn't sound like it. So I call to question all those in favor of the two special meetings, May 31st and June 9th. Raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Item number 15, supervisor reports. I have nothing to report at this time. Supervisor Weiss.
I have nothing to report.
Supervisor Grenier is not here. Supervisor Blundy.
I have nothing to report.
And Supervisor Lewis.
On May 23rd, that's Monday at 7:30, the Citizens Traffic Commission will be meeting inside the township building. So if you want to attend that meeting in person, you can definitely do that. And that's all I have as a supervisor report.
Thank you, sir. And going on to other business, anyone? Hearing none. Agenda item number 17, appointments to boards and commissions. Are there any motions here?
Yes, I'd like to reappoint Art Cohn to the Citizens Traffic Commission.